and welcome to the podcast that discusses all things gaming. Coming to you from the home of Indie PopCon, Gen Con, and the gaming capital of the world, we are the Established Facts.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 175. Sorry, 174.
174
of the Established Facts. I am your confused and numerically dyslexic host, Big Don, and I have with me tonight
Josh, and now it's night.
And now it's night. I'm setting the stage for failure already.
Okay, I'll get it. The moon is up. The wolves are howling. The cars are streaming by.
Yeah, and Don's brain has turned off for the night. So, unfortunately, as you can hear, I woke up this morning, and apparently seasonal allergies have destroyed my vocal cords, which is really fun.
Oh, yeah. We get the growly voice version of Don today.
How you doing?
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, so on episode 174 of the Established Facts, we are going to discuss, Josh and I, the ins and outs of mobile gaming, travel gaming, gaming on the go, whatever you want to call it. We're going to talk about some of the things that we do when we are going somewhere that is a long distance, say a convention like Fear the Con or something like that, and what we might pack as gaming, mobile gaming, and then some of the things that we actually do in the car to keep the travel interesting, and in general play games with each other without it being too strenuous. So
to be clear, when you say mobile or mobile gaming, you're not talking about mobile phone gaming.
Not talking about mobile phone gaming. However, that is optional. That is an option.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
What I'm specifically talking about when I talk about mobile gaming is, for example, a few years ago, Josh and Dr. Deb and my sexy wife Bonnie and myself, we went to Fort Myer, and while we were in Fort Myer, we got an opportunity to go to Orlando and visited the Magic Kingdom for a day. And on the way there and the way back, we actually played a game of Fiasco in the car, while we were traveling between the hotel and Orlando and then back to the hotel. So that is what I'm using as an example of mobile gaming. So these are games that you can play in the car with the other people in the car. Versus, say, for example, games that you would play in, maybe you're traveling, but you're taking some frequent stops, or for example, if you are taking a long trip where you're going to be on a plane or something like that, where you're going to be a little bit more stationary and you're not necessarily having to focus on the travel. So if you were on a plane, you could pull your little tray down and maybe play a game of Flux or something like that. So stationary travel gaming versus mobile travel gaming is kind of the versus topic I want to discuss first. And then we'll kind of talk about some of the ins and outs of travel gaming and things like that. So this should be a fairly easy back and forth since it's literally just the two of us. But I feel like we're still going to be on opposite sides of the fence on this.
It's possible.
So, Joshy, let me ask you: are you in more preference to stationary travel gaming versus mobile gaming? Which one do you feel like you kind of fall towards more?
I feel like stationary gaming is a bit difficult to do in a car, and that tends to be if we're looking to game from that perspective. But if it's we're not going to be at home, what games do we want to play at a non-home location? Then I would say stationary.
Okay.
The vehicle requires mobile options, I think.
Sure.
But if we're going to be at a hotel, or we're going to be at at a different game convention or even Disney or whatever, I feel like stationaries would be a little more advantageous because it makes us stop and focus on that game. Sorry,
Sure.
I'm already explaining it, so I'm saying stationary.
No. It's okay. So stationary
Yeah.
game. Okay, very cool. And ironically enough, I am totally down for mobile gaming. And not to take anything away from doing stationary game, because gaming is gaming is gaming.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me where. So you already kind of started to get into an explanation on like how you're defining it, why your opinion is set the way. Just go into that a little bit more.
So, again, I think stationary gaming for travel purposes is usually a little easier to pack, for one, and for two, we're not having to create as much in certain situations. Now, I state that Fiasco was a blast, and I think maybe I'm missing the station because I envision stationary more like board game, card game, physical game, whereas mobile gaming is where I don't know, we're having a role play session, but we're utilizing dice, or we're grabbing some random pieces out of a board and we're making up something kind of on the go or off the cuff. Maybe I'm missing your explanation there, but playing a game of euchre, or heck, I even remember sitting down playing Zombicide at Fear the Con. We popped that out, but in between sessions at night, and had a real blast with that because we were just able to sit down and play the game. There wasn't a lot of development that went into it. We did have to teach rules and so forth, but it was still, we're going to grab the game and we're just going to play it. And
Sure.
At home, you have a little bit more time to kind of flesh out characters or get real deep and involved in this big, heavy storyline that I don't know. I felt that was more of a mobile requirement versus stationary. But
Sure.
if I missed your explanation.
No. I mean, that's kind of where I wanted to go down, kind of opening up the definition a little bit more, giving it a little bit more clarity. Kind of what I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about mobile gaming or gaming while you're traveling. When I was a kid, one thing that we used to do in my family, which I'm assuming my parents probably did with theirs when they were on long trips, is like license plate bingo or games like that, where you kind of, it was something to keep your interest besides just focusing on the fact that it was going to take you 8 hours to get to, Franklin, North Carolina, or, 12 hours to get to Virginia Beach to see your aunt and cousins, that kind of thing. Things that would just allow you to pass the time without it being too much of an issue. And now that we are much older and at least much more experienced with our gaming, one thing that I have really enjoyed is the idea of having the opportunity to play games like Fiasco, or even, we've played kind of abbreviated versions of like Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons in the car before. A lot of times if you don't want to use dice, you can download a dice rolling app or something on your phone, and that's just as fine. What I like about playing games like that is it gets you out of your comfort zone sometimes of how you normally would play the game, because obviously if you're playing Pathfinder, or if you're playing a Pathfinder style transient game, if you will, moving from one place to another, having character sheets and having a GM screen and having your player's handbook and all that stuff is a little bulky to worry about in the car. So I think that in that sense, you could almost go with like just a dice roll 50-50 shot, or even doing like something that was extremely rules light, like Weird West or Quags or Fate, and still be able to pull off a really fun game while you're traveling without having the necessity of taking all of this stuff out of your game bag and breaking out, in a full-on session or something like that. Obviously, I think it's different depending on the mode in which you're traveling. For example, if you're just a passenger, it gives you a lot more freedom to figure out what you want to host, or what you want to help run, or what you want to kind of encourage everybody to get into while you're traveling. I think basically the difference between the two for me with mobile versus like stationary travel gaming. When I think of mobile gaming, I think this is something that we can easily play in the car between, say we're on our way to Fear the Con in St. Louis. It's a 3.5 hour or so trip, and if I'm the one that's principally driving, it's, I'm kind of looking at it like, okay, if I'm driving, what is going to be comfortable for me to help run or host versus what's going to be comfortable for my friends and things like that to play as we are traveling from Indianapolis to St. Louis. I don't want to worry about necessarily taking out 1,000,000 dice or character sheets or anything like that. So why don't we try a game of Fiasco versus if we're traveling from Indy to St. Louis and we happen to stop at a rest stop and everybody wants to kind of stretch their legs for 20 minutes and we break out a game of Flux. That's what I would consider to be like a stationary game where you have all the pieces and parts that you can kind of break out and lay out and set up, and then you can play a game, and then you can put everything away fairly quickly and then get back in the car and then just continue on your travel. Or like I said earlier, the example that I used, if you're in an airport, when we went to Fort Myer, one thing that we did, we sat down between the time that we had checked in and everything like that. We got there quite early to get to our plane to go to Florida. We stopped in like the concourse area and sat down and played a game of Cthulhu Flux, and that was about 25 minutes or so.
I do remember the Cthulhu Flux in the airport, which, by the way, of all the Flux variants, I think that's the one that messes with me the most. Just so many different ways to win, and it's very disturbing.
And what's great about that game is normally when you're playing Flux and you get the creepers, they're bad.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that game has more creepers than any other Flux game because, it's
and you
Cthulhu.
can win that way.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, and of course, there's a couple scenarios in each game that have the creepers that you can win.
Right.
But in Cthulhu Flux, it's probably half the goals are some sort of creeper-driven. You have to have the Ancient One, and you have to have the Necronomicon and stuff like that, like all kinds of crazy stuff.
But it was a situation like that, which I think having access to a stationary game when you're traveling in a plane or waiting to check into your hotel or whatever, I think that makes the allure of a stationary game which is why I prefer it. I think it's ultimately what I was trying to say. But I understand the need for a mobile game of some sort of mobile game platform that... I just say mobile game platform. You have your cell phone. That can be useful in the car. I think Derek's Universal Storytelling System, I think a lot of that was put together with that idea in mind. Grab a character sheet, grab a deck of cards. You don't really have to have a full play service. You just draw them out and figure out what your successes and failures were and move on. So...
yeah, USS is probably a really good system for that style of gaming, like if you are mobile gaming, because really, outside of having to shuffle your deck of cards, you don't really have to have a platform to set your stuff on. You can, everything can stay in hand. You can have your character sheet on your lap or whatever, and then just play. You don't necessarily have to have like a hard surface to play on. One thing that you just brought up that I was kind of thinking about too, that we hadn't yet talked about, was the art of using technology in your mobile gaming. So I know I made reference to like a dice roller or something that you can download, but more than that, like for example, Bonnie and I, one of our favorite tabletop card games is Ascension. And they have an app game that's a multiplayer app game for Ascension. And they even have pass and play on the game. So you can play with... depending on how many expansions you actually set up in the game, you can play with up to 6 players and literally just pass your tablet or whatever the thing is around the car. Now, obviously, if you're a driver, not really a great idea for you to be playing a game like that. But if you've got 4 other people in the car, that's a good game for them to play to keep their mind off the fact that you're traveling, because obviously the driver is going to be more focused on getting everybody to wherever safely. So, especially if they're also not the one running. Like if you played a mobile role playing game or something like that, if they're not the one running the game, that's kind of a nice thing for the driver to be able to just kind of, focus on driving while everybody else is kind of zoning out, playing around, and you don't have to worry so much about, people's interest being, suffering from the fact that we're in the car for 3.5 hours. And Fear the Con may not be the greatest example because it's only a 3.5 hour drive, and in my opinion, any drive that's less than a 4 hour, 5 hour drive is really not that bad when you're traveling from one place to another for like gaming and things like that. I think it can be a lot more difficult when you have like an 8 hour drive, or say if you're driving from here to Texas or here to Florida. That's a totally different realm of, if you're playing games in the car or something like that, versus if you are playing games like at your hotel in between stops and stuff like that. So one thing that you and I and the rest of the Established Facts have talked about several times is conventions, going to conventions and playing games at conventions and stuff. And one thing that I know you and I do very often, especially a few weeks before a convention comes around, is we'll kind of figure out what we're going to pack in our convention bag, and a lot of times it's like snacks for the road and a bottle of water, and if you're getting autographs, like some sort of cool notebook or something like that for autographs or pictures or whatever. But specifically when we're going to like Fear the Con or Gen Con or something like that, you and I also pack like a travel game bag. Mm-hmm. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about that, and like when you are planning on what you're going to take with you versus maybe what you might purchase when you're there, what are some of the go-tos that you have and why for your travel gaming when you go to a convention?
So here recently, I don't think I've gone through and resorted my small game bag in a while, just because we haven't. Even last year's BillCon. We're gonna build the con this year, anyways. Yeah. BillCon last year, we all took a lot less games because the crew that goes down there just brings a swath of them and lets everybody play. But
when you've got 30 guys and everybody brings 3 different games, I mean that's 90 games.
Yeah, it's a lot of games.
That's
so. But what I will bring when I pack a smaller bag is I'll grab your Flux games. I've got a few of them, Cthulhu and Monty Python and Standard, and now we have Anatomy Flux.
Anatomy
Flux, yeah.
Okay.
It's a learning version of Flux too. There's a standing rule in it that if someone reads the description and you can name what the organ is, you get to draw a card.
Wow, okay.
It's pretty cool.
That is cool.
Thank you, Derek and Dan, for getting that for Deb.
Yeah, that's fun.
Flux is good for that. We have one that we've had for a while, Don Gassano made, called Quack in the Box. Now that we found it and have two
I did
copies.
not realize that Don Gassano was the name of the person. I was like, I've never heard of that game in my life.
Don Gassano Games. I'm pretty sure that's the name of the company that made Quack in the Box. I don't even think
that's
he's
a fun
making
game
anymore.
That's
it
a
is.
fun game too.
But I got that one because it's a competitive game, but it's silly. We've now started. If my wife is coming along, we'll bring Marrying Mr. Darcy because it's just entertaining.
Yeah.
And almost everybody has a copy of Cards Against Humanity or something along those lines, whether it be Apples to Apples,
$1 Million Butt.
$1 Million Butt. We have You've Got Crabs, which we haven't played yet. We also have You've Got Problems, which was donated to us, and we need to take a look at this.
Yes.
Those are good ones, but I also like to grab a couple like bigger, like everybody can play games. Red Dragon Inn. I like bringing Red Dragon Inn 5 just because it's got the whole big box and everything and its brothers in it. And Zombicide, as I mentioned, I think Zombicide is a great cooperative game that's easy to learn and has some high stakes to it. It's not an easy game, but it's a lot of fun. And who's the Calliope games with Suro and Dicey Peaks. We just picked those up at Gen Con this last year. Suro, the Seas in particular. Those are great, quick throwdown. Let's sit down and play easy, but not easy games. It's easy to learn, not easy to play game. That's what I tend to go for. Something that is lighthearted and fun with one or two kind of crunchy type games in it, but when we're on the road, I'm not big on crunch games because I'd rather be at home doing those because we can spend a little more time with it, especially at BillCon where we're getting grief like you're taking too long to play blah blah game.
My gosh. Well, I don't think Bill has ever said that since like the second year we were there. But literally every year we're there was hey, are you done playing your game yet?
No, we actually
you've been
like
taking
to talk.
forever. Yeah. Our good friend Bill Stivers, he is. Not as much now, but used to be when we would go to BillCon and all hang out and play board games and stuff like that. He was I think he was a quantity guy as much as he was a quality guy when it came to gaming. And we would sit down and play I think the first time we played Tomb or the first time we played BSG, it took hours the first time we played BSG, it was a 6-hour game.
Yeah.
The first time we played that.
It took us 2 hours to figure out how to play.
Yeah. Well, and Tomb was the same way.
Yeah.
I like Tomb a lot, but Tomb, the worst part about Tomb is their rule book is so bad. Yeah. And, I know there's probably errata online that you can print off and download that have a better description of the rules and stuff like that. But that game, I still have it, but we don't play it very often because that game is just... it's just not necessarily the most friendly game when it comes to the rules and stuff. Apparently my phone's trying to...
I think we both just got a Kickstarter email. I know, I just did. But.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe that's what it was. So when I'm packing my game bag, and I don't know, there are some games that I pack just arbitrarily because I hope and pray that one day somebody's going to ask me to sit down and play. But like Magic the Gathering, yeah. I'll always pack like 1 to 2 decks of my Magic stuff in case I run into somebody that I know that plays Magic and we can sit down and play a casual game. By no means do I have really any sort of structured competitive decks or anything like that. I just really enjoy that game because it's a game that I learned when I was 16 and it's still alive and well and thriving, and there's a lot of really cool cards out there that you can sink your yearly income into, but in general when I pack my game bag, especially for example like for Gen Con, I'll always have my Pathfinder core rulebook with me because a lot of times we'll play PFS, Pathfinder Society, and then I like to pack my tablet now instead of having to take my core because I have, with my Paizo membership, I have like the core rule book and the bestiaries and a couple of the ultimate books, and then I've also got my Starfinder book on there as well. So I have like the hard copy, and then I also have the PDF version, and it's just a lot easier to take my 1-pound tablet that has everything on it versus 2 5-pound books, for space, and because walking around with a backpack on and having a 10-pound collection of books in your bag is not necessarily the nicest thing by the end of the day. No,
not in the world of technology that we've got, where all this stuff a lot of times is accessible. And by the way, if you're a game creator who is making books, have a PDF version of your game out there.
I mean, it helps, yeah, and it's cheaper.
Well, yeah, in a lot of cases it is. There's some companies that still charge a little bit, not more. Like you'll see like $30 for the physical and $15 for the
I think that's
digital.
fine. I think that's fine. I paid $20 for my core, my PDF core. I think it's 10. It's 10. Yeah. It's 10. You're right.
Paizo doesn't have very many PDFs that are more than 10. I mean, they have some.
Yeah, they have a couple, but
they keep them that way on purpose because they're trying to tempt you to buy the physical.
Sure.
But if you can't, well, at least give us this much. So
yeah, absolutely.
That was always their goal with the core rulebook. But
and I think that's another, that's definitely another advantage to kind of planning out what you're going to take with you is look at the menu of games that you want to play, and if they have a PDF version of it, I know D&D Beyond has a lot of different PDF versions of their rule books that you can buy and download on your tablet as well,
including the older
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
older versions. Yeah,
Yeah. So you can have your collection, your library of role-playing game rule sets and things like that all in one format to take with you wherever you go. And as long as you have access to a charger, maybe take a couple of portable batteries, which nowadays on the newer markets, they have really good like power banks and stuff that will actually charge a tablet all the way.
Yeah.
Versus, some of the earlier versions of those things you get like 30% battery life out of and stuff like that. But even still, if you're just trying to keep your tablet alive long enough to check what your spells are,
here's Josh's tech tip for you.
go for it.
Find out what your milliamp hour rating is on the battery for your device that you're charging, and buy a battery bank that is twice that size. So if you're trying to charge a 3,000 milliamp hour battery in a Galaxy S9 or S8 or S7, because I think they all had the same size, you want at least 6,000 milliamp hours. The reason I state that is because you'll get 1.5 to 2 charges out of the battery bank before it charges.
There you go.
So if you have a tablet, most tablets, like I have a Galaxy Tab S2, and I think it has like an 8,000 milliamp hour battery in it. Well, I've got a 20,000 milliamp hour charger from Anker that was like $44 or something like that. But it also supports quick charging for my phone.
Oh, nice.
So there's enough to charge the tablet one time and the phone like 2 times.
Right.
Without ever having to need
Which should
an
get you
outlet.
through, unless you're going crazy on your
Yeah.
tablet and phone like all day.
Yeah.
It should get you through an entire day. You go home, you throw your tablet back on the charger, you throw your phone on the charger, you throw your power bank on the charger. By
And
the,
do
the
not
next day.
buy the $10, $20 Family Dollar special that has 2,000 milliamp hours on it. You're not going to get enough juice out of it. So if you don't know your milliamp hour rating, you should be able to find it based
Google
off
it.
your model number.
Just Google it, yeah.
And just get twice that. And yes, you'll pay more, but you'll be happy you have double that because you get up to 2 charges out of it.
Right. Yeah. That's a killer tip. That's actually information I did not know. So right on. I will definitely. That makes sense now with all the $10 and $15 portable banks that I bought just out of necessity at the time. I'm like, okay, well, at least my phone didn't die, in the last half hour.
Right.
But yeah, that makes total sense. And if you can't do that, most of the time, depending on where you're going to go, if you're doing like something that's kind of a little bit more remote, like maybe BillCon, it's not always as convenient to plug a charger in everywhere because, for example, the boathouse out there is on a very small circuit box and you can't necessarily have a ton of stuff plugged in. But if you have access to, power outputs and stuff, you can just plug in the charger. Worst case scenario, you just plug it in and go. So yeah, using or taking a tablet with you for gaming purposes like that. Also, like I enjoy packing really easy, not just simple games that are easy to travel with. Like I'll take a regular deck of cards.
So you always take a regular deck of cards.
Because you can do so much with just a standard deck of cards. I'll take a Flux game. I'll take Love Letter. Love Letter is one of my favorite travel games. It's super simple. It's a lot of fun. You can play 4 people.
And there are lots of different love letters, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's actually, for the traditional Love Letter game, I think there's actually an expansion where it will play up to 6, which is kind of cool. And then...
That's Calliope, I think.
Is it?
I think so.
Okay. And then more recently, like I got the Top Gun party game, which is a lot of fun from Jasco Games. And then Once Upon a Time, I've still got that, and I take that with me. And I actually put those. One thing I would also recommend when it comes to if you are packing travel games, have a mode of transporting those games without necessarily having to use the same box, because most developers will create a box that is eye-catching, but not necessarily the easiest to pack.
I stand corrected. Roll For It is a Calliope game. Love Letter is Alderac.
Oh, right. Yes, you're right.
Similar box style.
Yes.
Roll For It is kind of the basis for 5-Year Mission. The same idea where you have little missions that you've got to roll dice and match up.
Tiny Epic everything.
Yes, everything Tiny Epic.
Yeah. Literally everything fits in their card box, which is awesome.
Personal favorite, Tiny Epic Western.
Yeah.
So entertaining.
Yeah.
And yes, and we have Tiny Epic Quest. We haven't played yet, but
yeah, I think I have that one as well.
Tiny Epic Western is really good.
Yeah. And you know, when it comes to like games with crunch, or at least games that have a lot of components to it, one of my favorite games to bring with me is always King of Tokyo.
Oh yeah.
Because it's fun, it's quick, it's easy to learn. It's one of those games that I like to call a gateway game. It gets people who aren't necessarily the most avid gamers into playing board games because it's quick action. You know, people are falling off the board left and right, and it only takes usually about a half an hour to 40 minutes, which for somebody who's a brand new gamer, that's usually about the amount of attention they have to spend on one game. And as a parent, that's about the amount of attention that you can divert your children with you know, a movie or something on Netflix. So I tend to gravitate towards that kind of style of game. So I guess one thing that I would like to talk a little bit about, now that we've kind of talked about what our menu of travel games are, is what actually makes those games more attractive for us to bring with us. What are some of the things that we look for when we are planning the games that we're gonna play? So, Joshy, what are some of the things that you look for in the games that you pack to take with you?
Quick startup, easy engagement, full of fun. I know that seems
fun factor.
Yeah, the fun factor I think is a really good way to say that. Quick setup I think is crucial. I think one of the things that gets us at BillCon a lot of times is like a Tomb or Dungeon Quest. Absolutely love Dungeon Quest.
It's so much
takes
fun.
30 minutes to set up because there's 10 sets of cards and this and that, and got to put the pack together. And it just
Legendary is the same way.
Yeah.
I love every legendary, Marvel legendary encounters.
Pathfinder Adventure card game.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. Like, we have a blast. I've gotten better at it. I've got set up down to about 15 minutes, depending on the adventure.
Minutes.
Yeah, it's still 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Second to that, the easy engagement. A game like King of Tokyo. No, I am not actually Gigasaur, but I want to be.
Right.
As
Right.
soon as you grab Gigasaur, you're like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah.
So it's easy to hook somebody in that way. And then the fun factor, it's as an emotional, we've talked about the Myers-Briggs and stuff and my feeler side of things. I love to see the emotional engagement somebody has in a game, whether it be they're very serious or it's made a kind of a sad impact, or it's just making people smile and laugh and have a good time. If the game doesn't have those three things in it, it really doesn't fit well in a travel environment. You got to be able to get people playing, invested, and remembering it. I'm not saying you have to remember specifically this game of King of Tokyo that was played on the 3rd of September under a half moon or anything along those lines. But you got to remember the fiasco game that we played driving from Fort Myers to
Right. I don't even remember everything about that game, but I just remember us having such a great time playing a game that, that we were driving down the highway playing.
I don't think if we weren't playing that game, I don't know how the drive back would have happened, because it would have like 2:30 in the morning.
We were exhausted, but that literally, because I drove.
Yeah,
I drove back, and I worked third shift at the time, so it wasn't really a big deal for me. But I will say that the drive back. Now, I don't know if you guys, I don't know if everyone feels this way. But I feel like when you're driving in an area that you don't know, like from Orlando to Fort Myers, Florida, where you don't live, even though the clock says it only takes 2 hours, it feels like such a longer drive because you are so aware of everything that's going on around you that you just kind of like zone out for that whole time. And then when you get to wherever you're supposed to get to, you're just exhausted because you wanted to make sure you took the right highways or you went the right direction, you're at the right hotel. But it was just so nice to, though we were still focused on that stuff, I could kind of mentally break away and just kind of goof off and play Fiasco while we were driving. I can't imagine like you said, I can't imagine what that drive would have been like without being able to do something like that and just kind of have fun. For me, when it comes to what I'm going to decide to take with me traveling, regardless where I'm going. If I'm going to Gen Con, if I'm going to Fear the Con, a lot of times it's going to be ease of mobility. So can I pack a couple, 3 of those games in my backpack without it taking up too much space? Because I want to leave enough space in my bag so that if I want to throw in food, if I want to throw in a new game that I just bought, if I'm traveling with my kids, if I need to pack extra diapers or, just having some extra space for utility purposes, I like to have. I don't want to, after going to Gen Con now for 13 years, 14 years, I've learned the tools that you need to have when you are going to be walking that whole day, from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. Walking 12 hours with a 30-pound pack on your back is not fun by hour 11, So
by hour 3.
Yeah, well... Yeah, right. But just being able to have some extra space for new material, or just not bogging down my bag with like heavy stuff. So yeah, obviously, like ease of travel. I totally agree with you. Fun factor. I don't want to pack games in my bag that aren't going to be fun to play. I don't like to play games, period, that aren't fun to play. So I'm not going to waste my time with a game that I've played a couple of times and I just really don't like, or is not necessarily fitting for the setting I'm going to. If you are a role player, games like Fiasco are perfect because all you need is the Fiasco source book and then a set of D6s. And the smaller, like, what are they, 12 millimeter D6s, I think is what they are.
Sounds right.
Something like that. They come, it's like 36 of them in a like a chess Xbox. Yep. Those are perfect. You don't even really need two-tone. It helps so that you know what are like good dice and what are bad dice.
You have to have 2 different colors or 2 different sets. Like you have
Sure.
to be able to separate them
Sure.
easily. So,
but something like that is not very difficult to pack. Even if you took regular sized D6s and you just took 2 sets.
well, and when we played in the car, Deb had a notebook that I'm going to take a bad. Like we knew there were 8 bad and 8 good, and it's like I'm going to take a bad one. We just tally it off instead of actually physically having it.
Yeah, and we used a dice rolling app.
Yeah,
and I think we actually rolled 8 dice, tallied it, and then rolled 8 more dice, and then tallied those, and then just kind of played that way.
Yep.
Let's see. So yeah, ease of travel, fun factor. Games that are simple to explain also, when you sit down and you play a game of Flux and people are like, well, what is this game? And you're like, well, this is the game of Flux. The rules are always changing, but really the only thing that you need to know is you're going to start with 3 cards. You're going to draw 1 card. You're going to play 1 card, and the rules are constantly changing. I mean, that's pretty much the explanation you have to give somebody for a game of Flux, because a lot of Flux you're going to learn as you're playing. Because, again, the rules are always changing. So yeah, in my opinion, any game that you can explain in less than 5 minutes is a really good game to take with you when you're traveling. Honestly, they're really good games to take with you wherever you're going, even if you're just at home and you're kind of teaching new people how to play those games. But in general, it's nice to be able to, again, like you said with setup, it's nice to be able to just get into the game as quickly as possible. And when you're spending 20 minutes trying to explain how the game works, you're spending 20 minutes on setting the game up, it's just kind of a hassle.
I agree.
So those would probably be my kind of my finer points in how to travel with games. So real quick, as we're kind of winding things up, Joshy, what are 2 of your favorite games to take with you, say, to Fear the Con or BillCon? What are 2 games that you always rely on and that you just really love taking with you?
Any one of the Zombicide games, I think, are always a hit. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but I think it's another great game, especially when we played it at BillCon. I had so much fun with it, was Hero Realms. I think Hero Realms is a fantastic competitive game that's real easy to pick up on. Hero Realms, Star Realms, they're the same kind of idea. They're easy to put out, relatively easy to set up, and if you got, we played free for all style in the last time, which the way the game's set up, you can either play where I can attack the guy on my left and heal the guy on my right, or something along those lines to kind of balance that out, or you can play free for all and it doesn't really matter who you attack. So sometimes we gang up on others, whatever. But I think the Hero Realms, Star Realms games are fantastic games for that are not too terribly difficult to learn. Not as easy as Flux, but I think I almost always grab one of those, and I'll grab one of the Zombicide games because that provides both a cooperative and a competitive option. You, sir?
Again, probably one of my staples is I'll always have a regular deck of cards. King of Tokyo is definitely, like I said earlier, it's definitely a go-to for me. A game that I just recently got that is a ton of fun, which I think you and I played with Alan one time, was Animals Upon Animals.
Oh my gosh, that's so much fun.
Yeah, I just recently got that for the boys. We haven't really gotten a chance to sit down and play it. I actually bought 4 new board games specifically to play with them.
That was BillCon 2 years ago because we made such
Okay.
We made such a deal about it because you had 3 grown men.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
Stacking wood elements, and it got serious.
Well, and so Haba is the company that makes it. I believe they're a German company. They have like 4 or 5 different versions of that game. Like they have one with like the jungle animals. They have one with like farm animals. They have all and then they have. I think they have it. They actually have a travel version, I believe, that has the same animals. They're just extremely small. And they come in like a smaller box so that you can just like throw it in your bag and go. I still want to play that game. It's not really a great game to play as like a factor play on recording.
No, it's very visual.
But it's kind of like playing Jenga, only you start with a blank
It's in
table.
reverse.
Yeah, you're stacking things up on top of an alligator, and I just feel like something involving whenever an animal drops, not only do you have to take animals, but you take a shot or something like that. We need to do something. I don't know.
You guys and your drinking
I'm
games.
telling you, they're fun. So yeah, Animals Upon Animals is probably one of my favorite games to kind of pack up and take with me. And recently, though I have unsuccessfully gotten anyone to play it since I got it and played it the first time, I have been taking Mysterium with me pretty much everywhere I go because I really want to play it.
Okay.
So, again, that's always a game that I will have with me because it's like, have you played Mysterium at all? Okay, it's basically Clue, but it's cooperative.
Oh, I'm down. 11.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Let's try it.
You have one person who plays the ghost, and they're giving hints, but they're not allowed to talk.
Okay.
And then you have everybody else at the table who is trying to figure out who the murderers are and things like that.
Oh, okay.
So I'll show it to you later so that you can kind of get an idea. But anyway, those are probably my go-to. Yeah. Deck of cards, King of Tokyo, Animals Upon Animals, Mysterium.
I remember Guillotine too. That was a fun.
Oh yes, Guillotine is a fun game, and that's a super quick. I think the most complicated part of that game is setting up the little guillotine that comes with it, and that's it. Yeah, if you haven't played Guillotine, that's a great game. Okay, well, I think we've had a fairly good discussion on what to take with us, and just in general travel games and stuff like that. On our last episode of The Established Facts, on episode 173, where we did our factor play of Red Dragon Inn, we established, I don't think so. Yeah. And on our new episode
174
of 174, I have, remember, when traveling, never forget your toothbrush, your favorite game, and always bring a towel.
Always bring a towel. Yeah, always bring a towel.
Thanks for all the fish. Thank you so much for listening to episode 174. We love you guys, and we will check you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Please visit us at www.theestablishedfacts.com and our Facebook page, facebook.com/theestablishedfacts. If you would like to support us by buying some merchandise, visit cafepress.com/castingrobot.
Bonus